Palestine authorities report at least 3 people killed and multiple injuries following an Israeli occupation shelling of the tents for displaced persons inside the walls of Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital. In the United States, former President Donald Trump presented a new controversial border security plan. On Monday, NATO began nuclear exercises less than 900 kilometers away from Russian territory, allegedly to send a clear message to any adversary. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Palestine, authorities reported at least 3 people killed and multiple injuries following an Israeli occupation shelling of tents for displaced persons inside the walls of Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital. According to local media, Israeli fighter jets fired missiles aimed at some 30 tents located in the medical center of the city of Deir al-Balah, inhabited by civilians displaced by the Zionist troops. In this context, civil protection teams were also deployed to the scene to carry out the rescue of the survivors. In parallel, the Israeli army carried out another attack against another camp located north of the Gaza Strip, targeting a group of minors in flagrant violation of international law and in addition to constituting a war crime. On the other hand, the Palestinian resistance movement, Hamas, increased its attacks against the occupation forces in all axes of combat in the framework of Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. The resistance detailed that these are operations against Israeli military targets such as an Israeli army recognition patrol, 2 jeeps, and the Zionist troops located in the Gaza Strip. Also in Palestine, at least 13 people were killed and others were wounded following Israeli shelling of Al-Mufti schoolhouse in displaced persons in the Nusayrat camp in the central Gaza Strip. Israeli occupation forces perpetrated a new tank attack against a camp for displaced Palestinians, adding these recent aggressions to the constant bombardments of the Zionist entity against refugee centers in Gaza. Authorities have warned of the possibility of an increase in the number of fatalities in the coming hours due to the condition of some of the wounded citizens. For their part, the health authorities in Gaza registered more than 42,000 people killed and more than 98,000 wounded since the beginning of the genocide. The government of Ireland has strongly condemned the Israeli bombardment of the Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Michael Martin, recalled that the entire Gaza is surrounded and under expulsion orders, facts that he qualifies as war crimes. The diplomat urged the international community to use all possible tools to put pressure on Israel to stop the genocide. The occupying forces have doubled their attacks on Jabalia, the largest refugee camp in the blockaded Gaza Strip, where the latest assaults have left 4 dead. In Lebanon, authorities reported an increase in the number of people killed by Israeli attacks, while the Hezbollah movement denounced that Israel used cluster bombs to attack several localities in the country. The Lebanese Ministry of Health informed that since October 8, 2023, Israel has killed more than 2,300 and injured more than 10,600 citizens. In this regard, the Lebanese resistance movement denounced the use of cluster bombs by the Israeli army, which are internationally prohibited. The political and military movement also indicated that the attack was carried out in the area between Hanin and Al-Tiri after the failure of the Israeli troops in direct confrontation on the battlefield. And the Lebanese resistance movement carried out a successful military action against an Israeli military facility south of Haifa. According to the statement signed by the group, they launched a drone attack on the Golani Brigade training camp in Ben Jamina, south of Haifa. They claim that these operations is just a sample of what they are prepared to do regardless of the circumstances voiced by the occupiers and their allies. The Arab media also reported that the death of a high-ranking Israeli official, but the Israeli authorities have not confirmed it so far.
We arrived with a large number of forces and helicopters, provided vital treatment to the injured, managed the scene of an accident with many victims, classified the victims, and quickly evacuated them to hospitals in the area.
In Iran, President Masoud Pezeshkian announced that Tehran welcomes any peace initiative in the region and called on European countries to force Israel to cease genocide in Palestine and Lebanon. According to local media, the Iranian president, during a telephone conversation with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron, assured that he is ready to support any solution for a permanent ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. The Iranian president also urged the European leaders to redouble their efforts to stop the genocide and crimes against humanity committed by the Tel Aviv regime against the people of the Middle East. Furthermore, both heads of states added that they have explored ways to establish a ceasefire between Tel Aviv regime and the Lebanese resistance movement Hezbollah. Let's take our first short break. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at @TeleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Chile, Carabineros repressed indigenous peoples when they attempted to march through the capital in commemoration of indigenous peoples and in solidarity with the Palestinian population. Protests were held near the Alameda in the center of the metropolitan region, where an authorized demonstration was held by indigenous peoples seeking to vindicate the resistance processes of indigenous peoples and at the same time highlight the struggle of the Palestinian people. However, the country's police force repressed the march a few blocks after it had begun, reporting incidents against the concentration of people. In Colombia, on instructions from President Gustavo Petro, a delegation composed of ministers and several directors arrived on Sunday in the department of Cauca. The Ministers of Defense, Mines, Environment, Agriculture, Science and Technology and Health, as well as several directors of national institutions and agencies arrived in the town of El Plateado. The area is historically plagued by violence and more recently taken over by a dissident group of FARC. Will now be able, together with the executive branch, to jointly design and develop projects. In preliminary information, it was learned that progress will be made in 7 projects focused on the economic transformation of the communities and another 30 for various areas.
Control has really been established in the Plateado, something that has not happened for at least the last 6 years, which is a presence that will be permanent. But it is not only the presence of the public forces in the Plateado, it is above all the presence of the government as a whole to develop social programs. The President has said that peace is the transformation of the territory.
Defense Minister Iván Velázquez also explained part of the working day with the community.
We, the executors of these ideas of the President, define with the population how we can make this transformation of the territory. What have I observed in the conversation? We have been walking around El Plateado for about an hour. We have talked to hundreds of people. There is a concern. Is it that you are coming to destroy the cocaine and leave us starving? Are you going to leave us without work? And we have answered them that all the project that is going to be developed in El Plateado, all this project of transformation of the territory is in agreement with you, in agreement with the community.
In Bolivia, the Minister of the Presidency, Maria Nela Prada, issued a new invitation to former President Evo Morales to a dialogue with members of the plurinational executive led by President Luis Arce. In addition to the former president, 5 representatives of the Unity Pact were summoned. All the ministers of the socio-economic area will be present on behalf of the executive branch, as pointed out by Minister Prada in a national chain. The main purpose of the meeting is to suspend the national blockade called for this Monday, but other topics of interest for all sectors of the country are also expected to be discussed.
We invite you to a dialogue at the Ministry of Economy and Public Finances, where our constitutional president of the plurinational state of Bolivia, Lucho Arce, and the corresponding ministers of the economic area will be present. This call to dialogue is to you and 5 other people.
Una comisión de 5 personas va a llevarse adelante esta mesa de diálogo en el Ministerio de Economía y Finanzas.
A commission of 5 people will be taken to this dialogue table at the Ministry of Economy and Public Finances at 3 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow. Therefore, once again I reiterate, if you are interested in the economy, come to the dialogue and suspend all blockades, which will only provoke food shortages.
The government of the Dominican Republic reported more than 11,000 Haitian citizens in 1 week, ignoring international conventions and international humanitarian law. The figure was released by the Immigration Office of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, from where they have described the procedure as successful. However, in addition to constituting a violation of the agreements in force with Haiti and of international norms, during the process, the rights of the Haitian citizens have been flagrantly violated. The human rights organizations of both countries, as well as the Haitian executive, denounced the massive repatriation in the current circumstances, as well as the violation of the conventions that protect children and teenagers. In the United States, at a recent rally in Arizona, former President Donald Trump presented a controversial border security plan, promising to significantly strengthen the Border Patrol and implement extremely strict immigration policies. Trump continues to argue that the country faces an immigration invasion, a claim widely criticized for fostering xenophobia and misinformation. Trump's plan includes hiring 10,000 new Border Patrol agents with a 10% pay raise and a $10,000 signing bonus. He also proposes mass deportation, suggesting the use of the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to expedite the removal of migrants. Critics argue that these policies are divisive, do not address the root causes of migration, and could lead to human rights violations.
You know, people have been talking about, they always rank the different things, and they rank, and I think the polls are wrong about a lot of things, although I don't want to say that now because we're leading, so let's leave them. They're only wrong when they give me a bad one. But we are doing great in the polls. We've done really great in the polls. But I think that the number one issue they have down is the economy and inflation, and I agree, they're horrible issues. But I think the number one issue is the destruction of our country, what's happened at the border. I really think that's actually the number one issue.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Martinique, protesters took to the streets, blocking roads and burning barricades to demand that food prices be brought in line with those in mainland. The island's residents are frustrated with a significantly higher cost of living, particularly when it comes to food, which is up to 40% more expensive than in France. The disparity in food prices is a long-standing issue in Martinique, with groceries and meals at restaurants costing substantially more than their counterparts in mainland France. The high costs are largely due to the island's reliance on imported goods, a legacy of its colonial past. Protesters are pushing for economic reforms to address these inequalities and ensure that the cost of living in Martinique is more aligned with that of France.
The money my mother gets isn't even enough to pay the rent, electricity, water, and groceries. Even if we help her, it's not enough to meet our needs. So we're forced to do these things. I think it's a shame that we have to, but we have to do it to make ourselves heard. If we want people to talk about us in France, we have to cause damage.
As a result of the latest episodes of violence, Martinique authorities plan to ban protests and declare a curfew after new riots over soaring prices, which resulted in one death by gunfire, 26 officers injured, and the looting of stores. The prefect of Martinique, Jean-Christophe Bouvier, planned to decree the curfew from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. as of Thursday and to prohibit all demonstrations and rallies throughout the territory. On Monday, NATO began nuclear exercises less than 900 kilometers away from Russian territory. Steadfast Noon is a drill that is carried out every year, and according to General Secretary Mark Rutte, it is an important test of the alliance's nuclear deterrent and sends a clear message to any adversary. The maneuvers include flights over countries such as Denmark, the United Kingdom, or Belgium, among others, with 2,000 military personnel and 60 aircraft participating. Prior to this event, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, assured that he was willing to negotiate with Moscow, Beijing, and Pyongyang to reduce nuclear arsenals. In Madrid, thousands of demonstrators took to the streets to demand that housing not be treated as a business, calling for an end to big landlords and to push for the regulation of tourist rentals. Let's see.
Thousands of people took to the streets in Madrid to demand that housing is a right and not a business. Young people, one of the groups most affected by the real estate crisis, led this historic demonstration, which above all seeks to facilitate access to fair housing.
Nowadays, it is clear that any construction that has to be done has to be public housing or has to be protected, obviously. But what we are talking about is that the solution is no longer to build more or less. What we have to do is to take all the housing that exists here, empty homes, tourist flats, investment funds, and turn them into public housing stock. Therefore, we ask the government, but also society, not to let ourselves be fooled that this is not about supply and demand. Housing is not a market.
The demonstration not only targeted private landlords, but also the authorities. Demonstrators demanded the resignation of Housing Minister Isabel Rodriguez, accusing her of failing to take advantage of opportunities to address the crisis.
As a matter of urgency, evictions should be stopped and rents should be lowered. That's what we need to do. But then we need to establish a plan of long-term, structural measures that will take decades, that will cost a lot of money, that will cost a lot of changes that many people will not like but that are very necessary. Just as with climate change, we all have to do our part to stop it.
This mobilization marks a turning point in the housing debate in Spain. Citizen pressure could be the catalyst needed to drive significant changes in housing policies at the national level.
In the case of the house where I live, it is in a building built with public funds that was not sold to the inhabitants who lived there but to investment funds at a lower price and who started to exploit the inhabitants with their policies of raising rents, harassing the residents to leave.
This demonstration in Madrid is not an isolated case. Cities such as Barcelona, Valencia, and Malaga have seen or will see similar protests in the coming weeks, evidencing that the housing crisis is a national problem that requires urgent and coordinated solutions. The final message of this mobilization is clear: housing is a fundamental right, not a mere market product.
In France, the inauguration of the 16th edition of the Lumiere Festival was attended by many film personalities. Let's see more details.
Also known as the Grand Lion Film Festival, it was the first French festival dedicated to historical films. Initiated by Bertrand Tavernier and Thierry Frémaux, and organized by the Institut Lumiere in Greater Lyon, it is the essence of the city's long cinema tradition. The cradle of cinematography hosts the Lumiere Festival and invites filmmakers, actors, critics, historians and writers to celebrate its vitality and memory. This year, the festival celebrates the career of Greek filmmaker Konstantinos Gavras and will exhibit about 170 films in their original languages, new prints or restored versions, presented by key figures of cinema.
This is a cinephile city, which is also a great thing because we know what cinephilia is. You show films in cinemas, and in my opinion that's the only place to see them, because it's an immense pleasure. Thank you very much. Dear Thierry Frémaux, I used to come here very often to these extraordinary evenings and stay behind, watch the films, listen to you, see the development of this extraordinary festival, and I was happy to do so with Michelle, my wife. Tonight, I'm honored and overwhelmed.
This 16th edition of the festival will run until October 20th, 2024 and will also pay tribute to the famous French actor Michel Blanc, who passed away a week ago. In addition, the Lumiere Prize, an award given during a ceremony attended by numerous artists and spectators, will be awarded to actress Isabelle Huppert, an emblematic figure of French cinema, for her life's work.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.
We